Welcome to Baseball and Coffee with Tino and Aaron. This is episode 16. Aaron is taking a break from the pod for the time being. For now, it'll be me, and I will have some guest hosts and interviews along the way. Next weekend, I'm hoping to get Matt, who's been on previous pods, and Freddie Mejia, who is his brother-in-law and a participant in our 16-team head-to-head league. I'd also like to interview Colin Peters, who is a buddy of mine's insane 11-year-old fantasy player, baseball crazed, which is super cool. It'd be really fun to have him on. Today, we're going to cover a little recap of the 16-team head-to-head fantrax draft that we had. It was a slow draft, 4 hours per pick, and it concluded about a week ago. We're also going to go over my best pick and worst pick from that draft, a couple players that I'm interested in watching, both majors and minors in this upcoming year. One under the radar prospect that I'm really excited about, and a little bit of pre-planning for opening day weekend and what's to come for this crazed baseball fan. So without further ado, opening day is 2 days away. Quick coffee story. It's cold brew season. It's supposed to be close to 60 degrees here in Walla Walla. Today, get up to 70 degrees later on this week, and we all love us some cold brew once it gets warm out. I just wanted to put a quick plug in for the Toddy brand cold brew system that you can use at home. It's about $35 on Amazon. It makes 1.1 liters of cold brew, which is brewed to double strength. And so as it's diluted, it gives you about 2 liters of coffee. It takes about 12 to 18 hours to brew. You grind it as coarsely as you can, pretty much on French press. Double strength is important because as you add ice to your cold brew, that ice will melt, diluting the coffee quite a bit. So if you're into citrus notes, look for Ethiopian or African coffees to make with cold brew. It makes a really bright, beautiful, punchy cup of iced coffee. If you like a little more chocolate and caramel, you stay closer to Western Hemisphere, Colombia, Guatemala, Nicaragua. Those are really generalized ideas about region and flavor profile, but those flavors tend to really come out and be pronounced in cold brew if it's made correctly. So be careful what it is that you like in a cold brew and experiment. But Toddy brand, Toddy, is the brand. The smaller cold brew system makes 1.1 liters. If you're really caffeinated sort of person, they do make I believe it's a 5-gallon container of cold brew as well. So fantrax draft. As we've said previously, Aaron and I and Matt and some of the others participate in a 16-team head-to-head fantrax league. It is 6x6. It's slightly unconventional in that we hits as a category as opposed to average. Obviously runs, home runs, RBIs, steals, and we use OPS. And then the less conventional category for batters is errors. So fewest errors wins the category for the week. Pitching, again, conventional other than we use both wins and losses. So losses function as the kind of negative category in the same way that errors does for hitters. We keep 15 of 30. We have 25 regular slots, 5 minor league slots, 5 DL slots if you need them. Keep 15, draft in reverse order of finish. And so pick round 1 is essentially round 16 in our draft. So quickly, my roster, I've got Wilson Contreras at catcher, MJ Melendez behind him. Was hoping that Melendez was going to start the year in the major leagues. He's not. But he played a little bit of third base and corner outfield in spring training. And so There are signs that he may be a catcher with multi-position eligibility, which obviously greatly increases his value in fantasy and on my team. Really excited about him as a player. He hit 412 in spring training with a 1.121 OPS. I think he has big power potential at catcher, and if he's playing other positions, he won't need the rest that a standard catcher does. So look for MJ Melendez to shoot up rankings as the season wears on, and if he can hit with the prodigious power that he showed last season in the minor leagues, or something even remotely close to it, he's going to be a top 10 catcher in the future. Wilson Contreras, I traded for in the offseason. He is my number 5 catcher. He had a lot of metrics that were very much in line with Will Smith last season. I think he's a lot better player than he's given credit for. Real quickly, his walk rate was 11%. Smith's was 12 last year. They both barreled the ball up at 11%. His hard hit rate was 48%. Will Smith was 44. His max exit velocity was 115. Will Smith 109, and his average exit velocity was 92, and Will Smith was 90. Just as a comp. Contreras, for me, has more potential to grow and to become an even better player than he's shown up to this point in time. I also think Contreras benefits greatly from the DH being instituted in the National League. He's a player whose bat the Cubs are going to want to keep in the lineup. And so I believe part of the motive in signing Yan Gomes was to give Contreras the opportunity to play as a DH. So look for bigger things from Wilson Contreras. He's headed into a contract year. I think he could also be traded, but I expect him to be a top tier catcher this season. Pretty comfortable with my catcher position with Contreras, and then hopefully Melendez being recalled once he's past the Super 2 deadline. First base was a bit of a hole for me. I traded away Andrew Vaughn in a trade to get Zach Wheeler in the offseason to strengthen my pitching. He was slated to be my first baseman of the future. I still believe in Vaughn, but I couldn't pass up the opportunity to trade for Wheeler. So I waited for quite a while to address first base as I looked at, I guess I should share one practice that I'm not always comfortable doing in drafts, but is a smart one if you can execute it correctly, is to assess whether other teams have filled specific positions that you still need to fill, and figure out how long you can wait to draft a player at that position. For me, I knew first base was a hole. I also needed a utility player or a DH, so a big bat to fill that role as well. And I had a first round pick, and then I had a fourth round pick, and then I had a whole slew of fifth round picks. And in the first round, I took Luis Urias because I believed I needed to fill my either second base or shortstop hole. And he was one of the few that had multi-eligibility and would be a good regular starter. So I took Urias in round 1. I didn't pick again until round 4. I really wanted to pick Matt Brash. This was coming right after his 6 strikeout, 3-inning performance in spring training. I knew he was going to be the number 5 starter in Seattle. I think he's going to have really great ratios. I don't know that you're going to see him go more than 5 innings in a start, but I can see him being a star, more of a bulk inning star. And I wanted to roster him. Even if he becomes a reliever, we'll see him be an SPRP eligible and be able to help my ratios and potentially pick up holds in a relief pitcher role. So I targeted Brash with my 4th round pick, leaving a hole at first base to be filled in the 5th round. I feel like I got a bit lucky in that I drafted Brandon Belt in round 5. I've always loved him. He's a high walk rate, good launch angle, power hitter. He did have a career year last year with 29 home runs and an OPS of 975 in limited time. I don't expect him to be the same player as last year, but 800 plus OPS is realistic. He was in 70th percentile for exit velocity, 73rd for hard hit. He had a 32 32nd percentile XBA, but an 89th percentile X slug last year, 94th for barrel and 90th for walk. That is a recipe for success. In my book, it's a lot of what I look for in a player is hitting the ball hard, being able to take a walk. He may hurt me a little bit in average that I can try to compensate for elsewhere, but I felt like he was a really great play in round 5. Backed him up with Mike Moustakas, who's my backup both at first and third. Similar idea with Moustakas in that he has a bit of power. You assume that he's going to hover somewhere around 800 OPS. I'm not counting on him as being a regular in my lineup, but I'd love to be able to plug him in the random case that he hits a ton of home runs because he's playing in Cincinnati and gets a bunch of at-bats in that park. He's a good upside play as well, even at his age, because of the power in the park and the opportunity. So I have Moustakas and Belt at first. Second base, Luis Urias, who's hurt and going to be on the DL to start, was my initial starter, but I was able to get Colton Wong later on down the road. I think he's perennially undervalued in that he's a 12 home run, 15 steal player at second. Yoan Moncada is my third baseman. We've gone over Moncada before. He has talked about wanting to run this year a lot more and provide a lot more stolen bases, and I think that would really change his position within the third base rankings if he was to try to utilize some of that speed and run a bit more. I would be jumping for joy if he starts to run. Shortstop was a little difficult. I roster Fernando Tatis. He's obviously out till at least June. I needed some sort of stopgap. I picked up Brandon Crawford. I don't expect him to perform the same way he did last year, but I think he's a good stopgap for me at short. My starting outfield would include Ronald Acuna if he was healthy. For now, it's Byron Buxton, Julio Rodriguez, Tommy Pham, Andrew McCutchen, and then I also have Adam Frazier. Obviously, it's a power speed type of outfield. I'm really excited about J-Rod, as you all know. We'll see what happens there. And then 2 minor league picks. I took Termarr Johnson, who is an 18-year-old out of Atlanta, Georgia. He's projected to be a top 3, probably top 2 pick in this year's draft. People have referred to him as the Black Wade Boggs. I don't know about all that, but if you watch some of his clips online, he's got a really beautiful left-handed swing. Currently, he's a shortstop, but I think his build and his range is probably going to move him to second base. His bat's going to play anywhere. He's one of the few that's been given an 80 grade on his hit tool. I think similar player to Wander Franco, but maybe a little bit more power, at least projected as of right now. So super excited about him. That's going to be a slow burn on Termarr Johnson, but it's going to be a fun one to follow. And then Christian Vaquero was my other minor league hitter that I selected. 6'3", 175-pound, newly switch hitting outfielder, signed to a $4.9 million deal with the Washington Nationals. 17 years old, Cuban descent via Dominican Republic. All you got to know is the one quote that I read was that it's like having an Alabama wide receiver on your baseball team. Tremendous power speed combo, lots of fun, hard worker. These 2 prospects, Termarr Johnson and Christian Vaquero, are the type of prospects that I like to roster on my teams where we have a limited minor league system. There are a couple of different approaches. I know one approach that Aaron's talked about quite a bit is to roster minor league players with a little better proximity to the major leagues. So they're a little closer, might be a little bit older, ready to play, so that you're not wasting a roster spot on a player who's not going to contribute to your team in the near future. I tend to take the opposite route, which is if I'm going to use a minor league spot, I want a player with upside. This is a keeper league. I believe it's how you can build a dynasty in this league, is to find players early on who are not valued in the same way that they might be in 5 years. So find upside, sit on it. It's the way that I got Tatis in our opening draft years before he made the major leagues. I picked J-Rod 2 years ago, I guess 2.5 years ago now, and rostered him before he was really a name. To me, that's the way you add to the base of a dynasty. It's not after they've established that value, it's beforehand. And so Termarr and Vaquero were the two that I wanted to have on my team. They also carry tremendous trade value as they get closer to the major league. So if I don't have a spot or I don't want the player anymore, but they continue to shoot up minor league rankings, they're a great asset to have on your team. Real quickly, pitching rotation, I kept Zach Wheeler, Robbie Ray, Carlos Rodon, and Logan Gilbert. Super comfortable with those as my top 4 in a 16-team head-to-head. Lots of strikeouts. I'm guessing Wheeler's right around 200. Robbie Ray's projected for 250. If Rodon proves to even throw 130 innings, we're looking at close to 200 strikeouts. And Logan Gilbert is a pitcher who is, I think, more on the rise than just about any other starting pitcher in the major leagues. Came out throwing mid-90s, really tightened up his slider this year. A little bit less break, and he added about 3 miles an hour to his slider over last year. So he's big park, obviously, great offense behind him. So Logan Gilbert as my number 4, I feel very comfortable with. I would not be surprised to see him go 160 to 170 innings and close to 200 strikeouts. I always like to have a 6-man pitching rotation in its 16-team format. My back 2 are Luis Patino and Matt Brash. I'm excited about both of them. I've always been a Patino fan. Looks like he's trying to change his breaking ball a little bit this year as well. There were some questions about his health, but he's pitched in the last 2 scheduled starts. And so I think Patino is going to be okay. And then Brash has just been absolutely lights out, high 90s fastball, wipeout slider. There's always been a question about his delivery being violent and lack of a third pitch. But as I said before, if he gets through the lineup twice and gives me between 3 and 5 innings with lots of strikeouts, I'll be happy with that in that role. So pitching rotation, I love. I feel very lucky to have those 6 as my starters. Behind them in the minor leagues, I have George Kirby, who is, a consensus top 3 starting pitcher in the minor leagues. Looked to be the best as far as I'm concerned, coming out of spring training. And he's going to be up with the Mariners within a couple of months, in my opinion. It's why I think Brash ends up in the bullpen ultimately, unless there's an injury. And I also selected Max Meyer, similar profile to Brash in that lack of a third pitch currently, but 2 devastating pitches in fastball slider for the Florida Marlins. I see him coming up after the Super 2 deadline as well. He's probably a short starter in that he's going 3 to 5 innings like Brash, maybe 6, but great ratios, huge strikeout numbers. Bullpen is Ryan Tepera, Alex Vesia, Art Warren, David Bednar, Mark Melancon. We do carry holds as a category as well as saves. Thought process here is get 2 primarily holds guys, Melancon, who is a saves guy, and then both Warren and Bednar, I think, could split time between closer and setup in Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. And so I wanted to balance out those 2 categories. So with that, if I didn't bore you already and you stop the podcast, strengths and weaknesses of this team. Offensively, tons of power and speed. I try to make sure that I don't have any lack of power at any position. Contreras, Belt, Wong / Urias, Moncada / Moustakas, Crawford, and then Tatis, Buxton, J-Rod, Pham, McCutchen. They're all double-digit home run guys. I may have to pick up some speed on the wire. I expect to get double-digit steals from Wong, potentially Moncada, Tatis even when he comes back, Buxton, J-Rod, Pham. But that's not going to be enough to get me to that 110 steal plateau that we all look for. So with that, I'll probably be playing the wire a little bit, looking to mix and match. I'm not sure where that roster spot's going to come from, but it's something I'm going to keep an eye out on. And then the other the other strength is the number of strikeouts in my pitching rotation. Since that's a category I'm super excited about, strikeouts. I like that Wheeler, Ray, Rodon, Gilbert, Patino, and Brash all pitch on teams that are projected to win 85 or so games. That means that I should be in a decent place for wins as well. Weaknesses, I'm banking on continuation of the career years from Brandon Belt and Brandon Crawford, and bounce back from Tommy Pham and J-Rod hitting the ground running. I'm also counting on Byron Buxton remaining healthy and Ronald Acuna coming back and stealing bags. So a lot of questions on the offense. Pitching, I have fewer questions. Obviously, pitching health, I took some risks, knowing that Wheeler had a little bit of shoulder tenderness in the offseason. Carlos Rodon obviously is kind of on his 9th live as far as his shoulder and elbow go. And then Brash is always going to be a health risk, but I think if those guys do stay healthy, I'm in a really great place pitching wise. And then playing the combo save thing with Bednar and Warren. So lastly about this league, it is an 8-team playoff system. So half the teams make the playoffs. My thought process is that if I can hold on to somewhere in that 8th spot, or right around that 8th spot until Acuna and Tatis come back, I should be in pretty good shape. So the idea was to get stopgaps and try to hold on and not let in too much water to the boat. Pitching should stabilize me as well, provided health. I was also able to wait on Patino a little bit and just pick Brash and invest higher picks in my offense and in the minor leagues because of the development of Logan Gilbert over the offseason. It was very important to the construction of my pitching staff. And then the last two things, worst pick. I didn't talk about it because I already cut him. In the 11th round, I picked Matt Liberatore, left-handed starter, St. Louis Cardinals. I thought he may have been their 5th starter. I love the context of the home park and the defense, as I've stated before about St. Louis. But what I didn't think about until after picking him was that his upside is really Marco Gonzalez of the Seattle Mariners, who went in the 10th round. And if I wanted the profile of Marco Gonzalez, I should have just taken Marco Gonzalez. Instead, I took someone who doesn't have a rotation spot, hoping that he is Marco Gonzalez. For context, I took Max Meyer at pick 10-3, so I could have taken Marco Gonzalez there, and I took Alex Vesia in the 9th round, and I could have taken Marco Gonzalez there. So Liberatore was my last pick, but was a wasted pick. I ended up cutting him and picking up Christian Vaquero in the first waiver period instead. Best pick, Art Warren, 7th round. According to Roster Resource on Fangraphs, he's the closer in Cincinnati. If you can find him lower in the draft, pick him up right away. In the offseason, Lucas Sims was supposed to be the closer. As Cincinnati waits for Sims to return from injury, Warren has been named the closer for now. If Warren closes well before Sims gets back, he's not giving up the job. Last season in 21 innings, given a small sample size, 14.6 Ks per 9, 3.4 walks per 9, a 1.29 ERA, and a 2.65 xFIP. ATC projects 50 innings with 11.9 Ks per 9 and a 3.42 ERA. He's a fly ball pitcher in Cincinnati, which gives me a little bit of pause. He throws his slider 58% of the time, 86.1 miles an hour in average last year, and a 95 mile an hour fastball 40% of the time. Some of the things I loved. He had a 19% swinging strike rate last year, which is absolutely elite. Batter slugged 125 against his slider and hit 104 against his slider last year. Tons of movement, 8% more than average vertical movement, 22% more than average horizontal movement. Had a -9 run value and was the number 33 slider in baseball in only 21 innings last year. So Art Warren, who's had injury trouble in the past, was property of the Mariners for a little while, but last year in 21 innings was absolutely lights out. If you can find him later on in your draft, he's an incredible saves upside play. I would say target him pretty quickly. He's one of my favorite dark horse picks, and I felt really lucky to get him in our draft. So that concludes my fantrax draft, a little bit of perspective on some of my teams and roster build. I do expect to contend for the championship this year. I don't expect to be at the top of the standings for the first half of the year. I need to hold tight, as I said, until Acuna and Tatis get back. But once they do, building on a core of Tatis, Acuna, Buxton, hopefully J-Rod, and a strong pitching staff should be enough to get me at least the opportunity to be in the playoffs and look towards the championship. Good luck to everybody. Anybody in our league who's listening to this, can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun. So players I'm excited to watch this season. At catcher, I listed Alejandro Kirk for the Toronto Blue Jays. If you haven't seen Kirk before, it looks like a gumdrop trying to play catcher and baseball out there. He's about 5'10", 260, 270 pounds. Incredible bat to ball skills. Really good hitter. I think he's such a good bat that if I was Toronto, I'd be trying to get his bat in the lineup 4 to 5, maybe 6 days a week if I could. I could see him DHing quite a bit in Toronto this year, but just an exciting, fun bat to watch. If you haven't checked out Alejandro Kirk, you should. First base, I'm excited to watch both Andrew Vaughn and Spencer Torkelson. Different profiles in that Torkelson is a kind of a launch angle power bat. Don't know if I see him hitting over 270 or so, but tremendous power, 40 home run hitter, going to be a lot of fun in Detroit. And him and Riley Green will be attached at the hip as far as how we talk about them for the rest of their careers. And Andrew Vaughn, who we've spoken about at length on the pod, needs to improve his launch angle and needs to hit better against right-handed pitching, but absolutely destroyed left-handed pitching and had tremendous numbers as far as batted ball metrics last year. I think the potential is there for him to be a 300 hitter and hit 30 home runs a year. The White Sox asked him to play our corner outfield last year, even though he never had in his career. He was a first baseman. And he also didn't have any minor league time, given COVID and the fact that he was a college player. So he had a lot to overcome last year. And I think that was part of the reason why he didn't perform up to his potential. But I look for him to have a much better season this year. I will miss having him on my team. But those two are the first basemen that I'm watching. Second base, I want to see how Javier Baez adjusts to playing in Detroit and playing in the American League. Such an interesting profile. Everything about his batting approach is the kind of approach that I run away from, but he consistently puts up 20 plus home runs and 20 plus steals. He is playing in a much bigger park. I wonder if some of his home runs will become fly balls in Detroit this year, but I still want to watch and see. He was a cult hero in Chicago with the Cubs, and especially amongst young fans who were really sad to see him go. So I want to see him establish that same sort of identity in Detroit. Detroit loves its loyal ball players in any sport. And I think Baez has the chance to kind of build a second half of his legacy there. Worth mentioning is Ellie De La Cruz, who's currently listed at second base. Don't really know where he's going to end up. Cincinnati Reds, a prospect who is just an uber athlete. Speed, power, already hitting prodigious home runs in the backfields in the spring. One to watch if he is able to continue to be able to get his bat to ball. Look for him to be a top 10 prospect, maybe even at midseason, but certainly in the 2022-23 offseason. Third base, I want to see you on Moncada steal more bags. I think this could be his career year. He's either been an on-base machine or hit for a little more power, but he hasn't really put both together yet. One of these years he will. I have confidence in you, Yuan. We'll see what happens, but he's obviously one that I'm going to be watching. Shortstop, Francisco Lindor is my one to watch, similar to Baez, even though he's been in New York for a year. I think it took him almost a year to adjust to the pressure and the market of New York coming from Cleveland. He still is a 30-20 player and could be a huge positive value for fantasy players if you picked him in, as we did in the third round of an expert league, 15-team expert league. He's a first-round player if he's playing up to his potential. So watch for Francisco Lindor, another year being a little bit more comfortable, less pressure on him, more focus on Max Scherzer. And then O'Neal Cruz, who regrettably was sent down because Pittsburgh is cheap. I think they're keeping him down until the minute they can bring him up and pass his Super 2 status. But man, O'Neal Cruz was the talk of spring training. Plate coverage, similar to Vladimir Guerrero Sr. in some ways. The one home run that he hit off his shoe tops or off the ground, basically, is everything he hits is a home run. I wish I drafted him last year and then cut him, I think, right after the draft. I wish I would have held on to him. He's quite the player. I don't think it even matters where he ends up position-wise. He's such an incredible hitter. Then the outfield, Luis Robert, or Lou Bob, is the outfielder that I'm interested in watching this year, along with Julio, obviously. But Lou Bob has been drafted in some drafts as high as low first round. And he hasn't put up the numbers yet to warrant that draft status, but his metrics are certainly there. And in a small sample last season, he certainly showed the potential to be a first round player, but he's yet to put it together for a full year. So we'll see if he's able to do that. And then the few pitchers that I'm excited to see, Dylan Cease, because of his high strikeout rate and amazing stuff, great swinging strike rate. And Hunter Green, just because how many people throw 104 mile an hour fastball. The two relievers, Camilo Doval, see if he can continue the success he had last year. Funky delivery, lots of fun. And Andres Munoz of the Seattle Mariners, coming off of injury, but 100 mile an hour pitcher, lots of fun. And then finally, to opening day weekend, for me, it's always been a really special time. Historically, I've actually taken off opening day from work when possible and planned those 12 hours to be an incredible food time, time with friends. I have memories of doing that with Brandon Young, who's also in our league in Seattle. So this season, Matt and Freddie are coming out to Walla Walla and getting an Airbnb so that we can watch baseball for 2.5 days. Super thankful and appreciative that they're willing to come out this way. It's 4.5 hours southeast of Seattle to celebrate baseball and hang out. So I'm trying to put together a meal plan for these guys. I want to make sure that they enjoy it so that we continue to do it every year. I know Matt likes wine and Freddie likes Jack, so we'll make sure to have that on hand and ready for them. We'll probably make some buttermilk brown sugar cornmeal waffles that we used to make in the coffee shop for breakfast. I think we'll do migas on Sunday. We might grill steaks on Saturday. I certainly want to do ribs Friday night. Like to make my own sauce and own rubs, and maybe a Sunday send-off of some Cubano sandwiches. But it's going to be, I think we figured out it's going to be 5 computers, 1 big TV, and just a couple of dudes watching baseball and celebrating our favorite game. So should be super fun, super excited. Again, very thankful that baseball is back. Thankful for good friends and fantasy. And it's just, this is my favorite time of year. It's going to be super cool. And go Julio. Can't wait to see his debut. So I think that's it. Just super ready for the season to start. We're going to try to do some podcasting when Matt and Mahia show up here. Might be a little bit less formal. Might just be us kind of hanging out and talking baseball while we're watching, but whatever it might be, hope you guys tune in. Aaron, I miss you. Hope you're coming back soon. And we'll try to get Colin Peters on in the near future as well. So happy watching this week. Enjoy opening day, and go Mariners. Peace.